Seth Stokes, 106.3 WORD News here with Randall Frye, the director of the Fountain Inn History Center. And Mr. Frye, appreciate you joining us today and taking some time out of your day to talk with us about beautiful Fountain Inn. This is I'm new to the area, so this is one of the first times I've been down in Fountain Inn as far as the downtown area. And just driving through it is absolutely gorgeous. For you, working here, like, what is your favorite aspect of Fountain Inn?
I'm like you, I'm new here, but not new to the area. I grew up in the upcountry of South Carolina. Always been familiar with Fountain Inn. I've only been here since August the 1st. The thing that I love so much is the uniqueness of Fountain Inn itself, beginning with the name Fountain Inn. We are the only Fountain Inn on planet Earth, as far as we know.
Oh, wow.
And we got that name from the stagecoach route that came through. We were on the stagecoach route from Charleston, between Charleston and Asheville. And there was a spring along the stagecoach route in what is now Fountain Inn that they said back in the days bubbled up out of the ground up 2 to 4 feet high. So the stagecoach drivers referred to it as a fountain, and they started making it a regular stop where they would water their horses and their passengers. And in the 1820s, an inn was built across the stagecoach route from the fountain. Mm-hmm. And again, the stagecoach drivers began referring to the inn as Fountain Inn, and so the name stuck.
Nice.
And, so it's for 1,500 years prior to the American Revolution, this was part of the Cherokee Nation. And then once at the end of the Revolutionary War, the Native Americans were kind of pushed out of South Carolina, and all that is present-day Greenville County, Pickens County, Oconee County, I think parts of Anderson County opened up to new settlement. So the Scotch-Irish came in then. Most of the early settlers were predominantly Scotch-Irish, so naturally our oldest church around is Fairview Presbyterian Church.
Okay.
So.
When you look at the historical aspect of Fountain Inn, is there a certain landmark that everybody kind of points to as far as this is what Fountain Inn, outside of the fountain itself, or how the town was named, but just maybe a train station or a clock tower? Is there a landmark like that everybody goes, this is Fountain Inn, this is the epitome of downtown Fountain Inn?
I think one of the most unique things is the statue to Peg Leg Bates. Okay. That sits over at on the grounds of the Fountain Inn City Hall. And Peg Leg Bates' statue sits next to the temple, which was the Grecian temple that was built by Robert Quillen, who was probably, those two gentlemen are probably the two most famous people that hailed from Fountain Inn. Peg Leg Bates was born here in 1907, lost his leg when he was about 12 years old in an industrial accident at a cotton seed oil mill here. His leg had to be amputated. He was already a dancer, or enjoyed dancing before his accident, and he did not let his handicap stop him. And actually, his peg leg probably made him very unique. And he went on to dance 2 command performances for the King and Queen of England back in the 1930s.
Wow.
He had his own nightclub show in Harlem. He danced in movies with Shirley Temple. He appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show more than any other star in the history of Ed's show. And then Mr. Quillen came here from Kansas and bought the Tribune, became a syndicated columnist, was good friends with Will Rogers, and he was syndicated in over 400 newspapers nationwide and had more than 9 million readers at one time. And Aunt Het, we have the Aunt Het Festival here every first Saturday in October, and the Aunt Het Festival was named after one of his characters in his columns, which was Aunt Het.
That's very interesting. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. As small towns across the country, kind of move forward, new technology, new business, things of that nature, how important is it, in your opinion, to maintain the historical integrity of small town USA? It's
very important, especially with a community that's growing at the rate that Fountain Inn is growing in. Just since August the 1st, when I came on board here, I have had visitors in from China, 3 different groups from England. I've had folks in from Greece, Puerto Rico, Canada, and probably more than 24 states in the United States, just in that short amount of time. So that gives you some perspective of the international destination that this town is, basically because of all of the industries that we have, the international industries that we have located here. So you can see that we're challenged to keep that small town flavor, and I think that's what our city leaders want to do, is to we don't mind the growth, but we want to really try to preserve that small town southern heritage that Fountain Inn's known for.
What is it, in your opinion, about Fountain Inn that makes it so special?
I think it is that even though the growth that we've experienced, especially in the last, I would say, 15 years, the people here have been able to preserve that small town feel, and I think that's what attracts people to Fountain Inn.
If you could kind of sum up Fountain Inn in one word or one phrase, what might that be?
Charming.
Yeah. There you go. I know driving up and down Main Street, you see the different restaurants and the businesses and things of that nature, and you see them in the old buildings, and the fascia of the building looks the same with just a different signage for the restaurant. And I think that's one of the cool things about small towns. You see that across the country in a lot of places. And what has that been like, just from your perspective, as far as meshing the new business with the old buildings and the old style? And do you get any pushback from anybody or anything like that, or does it seem to kind of happen pretty smoothly?
No, I think it's been, with change and growth, there's always growing pains, but I think it's been a smooth transition. The downtown revitalization has not been completed too terribly long ago. Mm-hmm. And of course we're part of it here in Commerce Park with the farmers market, and then the Chamber of Commerce and the museum are housed here in the same building. Our building was constructed to reflect a train depot, like the depot that once sat here. So I think it's been an exciting time for me to come on board when so many exciting things are happening. Nightlife is really picking up downtown, and that's one reason that we've extended our hours. I'm open until 7 o'clock on Thursday evenings, and in the summertime we'll be open the months of June, July, and August. We'll have extended hours, and we'll also be open on Saturday, just because we do have so much foot traffic downtown now.
With the increased foot traffic, obviously there's been a lot more people coming through the museum, and as people are coming through and you're seeing the spectators walk and look at the exhibits, what are some of the reactions that you've been able to gather? Like, what are some people's opinions that you've overheard coming through the museum?
They're very surprised that a town this size has its own museum, number one, and then they're very complimentary of what we have here and the history that's been preserved, and they kind of walk away very happy that they stumbled across us, because sometimes that is they just happen to see our sign out on Main Street, that we're open, and we raise money and try to keep the museum free. We don't want anybody to come in just because they couldn't afford an admission price. And
what is your favorite artifact here in the museum?
My favorite artifact, Quillen's typewriter.
Okay.
Is one, because you can just think that that the words that were typed on that typewriter were read by 9 million people a week, and I think that's pretty fascinating. And one of Peg Leg's peg legs, that his uncle made his first peg leg, and so we have one of his peg legs here. And one of the interesting things about him is whatever color of suit he had on, his peg leg matched his suit.
That's really cool. Mm-hmm. Got to keep it coordinated, I guess. Looking back at maybe some old photos of the train depot that stood here before, and maybe you saw some plans for that. With the rebuilding of it and everything, how close to the old train depot did they get from a look and feel standpoint?
Our building, it really reflects an old train depot, but not necessarily one that stood here.
Gotcha.
So, because I would say it was typical of the depots that were along the train route, because the route here went from Laurens up to Greenville, and there were depots, of course, Laurens, Gray Court, Owens, Fountain Inn, Simpsonville, Malden, and then down into Greenville. And most of them were very similar, because they all had the loading docks and the passenger area, when the passenger trains used to come through. So,
since you've been here and talking with people that have maybe been here for a while longer, and with the revitalization, what would you say was probably the biggest challenge that Fountain Inn faced with the revitalization?
Taking away the angled parking on Main Street. That seems to be the biggest challenge that they had, was that people were so used to that angled parking. But it's beautiful. Like I say, I grew up here, and I've been through Fountain Inn many times before I came to work here. I worked for the Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce for 10 years, so we had a really good relationship, since about a third of the city of Fountain Inn is in Lawrence County. So I've had those friendships and those professional contacts. And so I know, when it was a 4-lane highway through here, and they took it down to the 2 lanes, but it slows people down. The landscaping and everything is just, I go back to that word charming, that you asked me about earlier. It's charming, and it was probably worth all the changes that were made.